And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. My name is Rory Paquette. I am your host. I love you guys. I love this podcast. This is the best job anybody could ever ask for. And I am grateful to be sitting in this chair once again for another awesome interview with an awesome dude who's getting ready to tell you all about his program. In the meantime, the Podcaster Nation. I said come back because I knew you wanted to come back for more. You were just listening to one of our episodes, weren't you? I know you were, and you came back because you wanted even more. Folks, this is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. This is the podcast that is for podcasters. It is about podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And like I said, my guest is a podcaster. That's what we do. This is our community, and this is what we love. Please welcome to the show this awesome dude who was really surprised I could pronounce his name, but I'm talented that way. That's how I roll. Please welcome Andrew Kordula, host of the Vinally High podcast. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. How are you tonight?
If I was any better, I'd be twins. Just don't tell anybody, okay?
And I know I joked about it, but I really am surprised that you got the name right on the first try.
Yeah,
It's
you said what was it, Cordella is how people were
yeah,
pronouncing
a
it.
lot of people want to make it that short U, or they put a B where the D is, and you'd be surprised how many people have a tough time
Yeah,
pronouncing it.
Cordula is a cool name, man. I mean, especially pronouncing it that way. It just
Yeah,
sounds like Transylvanian almost, like
it
Cordula.
is. It is Czech. So my
I
my
was really
heritage
close.
comes from Czechoslovakia. So
Got it.
I don't know which side it would have been with the two countries being divided, but
Okay. Gotcha,
yeah,
man.
it's an Eastern European name and nobody can say it right.
Cool. Well, I'm Italian, so maybe that's why.
So yeah, that's what we joked before coming on this thing that it's if you have a name that nobody can pronounce, I feel like you're better at pronouncing those more difficult names because you know what it's like to deal with
To be on the other end. Yeah, right.
yeah, it always being butchered.
All right, man. The podcast, Vinally High. Okay.
Yeah,
And if they haven't seen your logo, that's a picture of a record, right? Old vinyl record,
it is.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So before we get rolling on like, who Andrew is, and, what you're about, give everybody at least an idea, if they haven't heard it before, what's the podcast about?
Yeah. So most people have probably not heard of it before. We are fairly new. We're actually in the middle of recording our third season right now.
Wow. Okay.
Um, so we've been at it for about 2 short years. But it's a podcast that celebrates, in my opinion, two of life's greatest pleasures, and that is vinyl records and hemp or CBD products. So basically, we spin a record every episode. We talk about it. We talk about music. We talk about life. But then the flip side of that is we talk about everything cannabis and hemp related, the products we love, we use every day, why we use them, what the health benefits can be, uh, applying it to everything holistic health. And then at the same time, we tell our funny stories of the shenanigans we get into on our off time.
Awesome. All right. And it's you, and you mentioned that you sometimes have a co-host with you.
Yeah, so on the show, I go by the stage name Drew Beats, and then of course I have my co-host that I'll shout out here. His name is BJ Buds. We've been friends, man, probably about 5 or 6 years now. And ironically enough, the show kind of stemmed from an idea he had, and then it sounded crazy, but we took it and we ran with it, and it produced itself.
Okay, that's cool. Was it a CBD aided idea that he had at that point,
Uh,
or?
it was so to sort of tell the story, but not get too long-winded about it. It stems back to my bachelor party about 2.5 years ago now. And him and a couple of my friends took me out to a record show to start the day. And then we went out on the town after that. So he was cleaning out like an old estate sale house and came across some old records and knows I'm into them. So he just randomly grabbed one and was going to give it to me on the car ride over there. And it was a Bob Dylan album. But it was like a lesser known spiritual sort of album. And I'd never heard of it, but I was like, cool, it looks pretty beat up. I'll take it home. I'll do whatever with it. So I threw it on a pile of stuff that I had no intention of ever listening to. And then one night he came over. We had a few pre rolls, we decided that would be a good time to put that record out for the first time. It had been sitting in my room for almost a year at that point, like never touched. And it got to be a pretty fun night. We kicked back, we let loose, we told some stories, we made fun of the album. We were in a good mental state, I think, at that point to fully appreciate what was going on with that particular Dylan record. And after we were done listening to that one, we put on a few others, but he was like, we should record this next time we do it. So we remember everything that we talked about in the wild tangents we went down, being under the influence.
Huh.
And
Okay.
it was a sort of a joke. And then we talked about it, like, we should actually do that and turn it into something. He was like, let's just make a podcast out of it. So we met a few more times after that and talked about some of the logistics and just thought it actually seemed like a cool idea. So rather than just recording ourselves at that point, we actually decided to turn it into a little 4-part season one and just to see how it went and had so much fun that we just kept it going.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I
Yeah.
mean, we're hanging out, we're having a good time. Let's record it so we can remember it. And and then you know what? Hey, if we're going to record it anyway, why don't we share
Yeah.
this with everybody? And so what makes you go from, hey, we want to be able to remember what we're joking about to we should share this with the whole world?
That was probably a solid 6 month long process
Really?
of just talking about the scope of what it would be because initially we didn't want it to just be a sloppy mess. So there had to be some professionalism behind it in a certain sense.
Right. To some degree. You gotta have some
um,
level.
which is why for the first season we only did 4 episodes and then like some bonus content just to throw some of the wilder stories in a bonus episode, just to kind of iron out how everything we thought should flow from. Well, if this isn't just going to be about us getting high and acting stupid, let's
Nice.
let's let's tune into it and see what we really have going. And so the first season was just the two of us. We didn't have any guests. It was a little all over the place, but it got us a good start and a good feel for what worked, what didn't work.
Cool.
Conversations we can incorporate versus okay, that got a little out of control down the crazy tangent line, and that's we gotta reel that back. And but we still had fun, and I love music, and he brings a lot to the table too. He's a big music fan too. Not into record collecting in the same way I am. I'm the big collector of the show, so I have my 400 to 500 probably plus record collection,
Wow.
and we sit in front of our player and just hang out and talk. And really, that's what spawned it in the beginning was just the conversations that occur when you're just hanging out listening to good music, or
Mhm.
when you've had a little bit of a certain product and not to the point where you don't know what you're doing, but you're a little loose and you're just cutting it up. And it's those conversations we have just sitting on the couch, sitting around the record player. And so we thought that would be something fun to turn into a legitimate product once we kind of figured out the best way to go about that.
That's cool. No, that is. Sometimes those are the best conversations you're ever going to have.
Yeah, and that was, I know he was joking about it at first, but I thought about it, I was like, you're right, we should record it because there's so many good conversations that come up when you're just sitting around with your friends talking about life.
Right. You play records during the podcast, while you guys are
Yep.
chatting. Now I know you mentioned Dylan. Is it, Dylan type stuff? Give me an example of maybe three, four, artists or records that you guys play, just to give everybody an idea.
It is all over the place. My music taste is very eclectic. So I try to get genres from across the spectrum, although I will say my collection is more predominantly punk rock, pop punk, and heavy metal, just because that's what I grew up listening to.
Okay.
As I age, I add more genres to the mix. So I'm constantly looking to add new things. So we've spun anything from meatloaf through we just had a DJ that was a guest the other night where we spun and kind of a dance hall record from a guy named Duckworth that I have. So it spans anything and everything.
Wow. From dance music down to Meatloaf over to Dylan. I mean, I'm already
Yeah,
kind of like, you're,
yeah.
you're covering a lot right there. And then,
Oh
heavy
yeah.
metal.
Yep.
It's like, wow.
And then we've done reggae, we've done R&B, we've done hip hop. So it definitely crosses the spectrums.
Nice. Very
And the fun
nice.
part is we let the guest pick the record because then it brings that meaningful conversation as to why they selected it as well. So it's not just our show dictating everything.
Right. So now you said you have guests. Now, how do you pick your guests? Who do you typically have on as guests? Who are some of these folks?
So we have anybody, whether they're a band or a musician or in the local music scene somehow. We have CBD shop owners. We have product specialists. And then we've also started incorporating other holistic health practitioners. So we have yogis, Pilates experts, meditation and breathwork experts,
Wow.
because you're seeing more and more of plant products being incorporated into other practices. So plus music is also a big part of what they do. So it kind of brings everything together on the educational side of using plant medicine.
Nice. Nice. Okay. I mean, that sounds interesting too. Now, how long have you guys been doing this? You said 3 seasons.
3 seasons, but probably only about 2 years.
Okay.
So we
And
did our first season in like the summer and then started our second season and extended more episodes and started that after like the first of that next year. So they were very close. Now
okay.
we're kind of on just a yearly cycle. So we went a full year. Now we're recording our third season, and that's actually going to drop, I believe, March 10th.
Wow. Okay. March 10th, third season dropping. March
Yeah,
10th.
so make note of that.
I am right
Episode
now. Yeah.
episode one will be dropping. You know what? Let me double check my calendar to make sure. I believe that's what. Yeah, March 10th will be the first episode of season three.
Make sure you're sure because you announce it on this show and it's money. Okay. I mean, people will hold you to it.
I know that's why I made sure to double check the calendar. We drop once it drops, it's weekly every Monday. So I
Right
had
on.
to make sure the 10th was in fact a Monday.
Very, very cool. So season one, you said was 4 episodes.
Yeah, 4 episodes, and then we released a couple additional things. One was just all random bonus content from the other episodes, and then we actually ended up releasing the test episode we did, sort of like our pilot, as a official episode later in the season two.
Nice. Okay.
We
And
did we
see,
did one test episode just to see how we sounded, make sure all the equipment went right, and it never aired. So then we're like, you know what? Let's put that out at the end of season one just for fun.
good idea to do though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Always do a brief test episode.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm so neurotic about it that when I go to record like my solo episodes and stuff, I'll do my announcement, stop, play back, listen again, and go, I'm okay. Pick up here, keep recording
Right? Yeah,
because I'm so
same thing.
paranoid.
We do our sound check, and then I'm like, something in the next 10 seconds before I click record. What if it happens?
Right. Exactly. So how long is season two? How many episodes you have in season two? Then I assume you expanded from 4.
Yeah, we did 8 in
Okay.
season two, and now
Okay.
for season three, we're doing 10. So
Nice.
I
Nice.
don't know if we're going to cap it at that going forward, or if we'll slowly add a few more each time as we start to make more and more connections and are able to have more and more guests.
That's cool though. You're coming up on like 30 episodes ish
Yeah. And
all
I think
together.
we're roughly at almost 300 downloads total.
Cool.
Um,
Very cool.
so we're growing, we're getting there.
No, that's awesome, man. And you're doing it all slowly at your own pace, on your own
Yeah.
terms. You're having fun. That was the other
I
thing.
was I was
You
just gonna
said
say
that. Go
it's
ahead.
all about honestly having fun.
It has to be. It's got to be.
Yeah,
Podcasting should be fun, and that was one of the first things you said, which was cool.
yeah. When it grows, it'll grow. But for now, even if it's just considered a hobby, it's I look forward to it every single week. It's such a blast.
Nice, very nice. Now, you did mention we talked a little bit about monetizing the podcast and stuff, and I asked you if you had done that yet. I'll let you tell everybody. Kind of you sort of have, but you haven't. So, have you monetized your podcast yet? And please, can you tell us about it?
Absolutely. So, because I consider us to still be fairly new, we honestly haven't made a big push to financially monetize the show. And so we have not made a single physical penny off of it yet. We have a Patreon and nobody signs up to support it. We've reached out to a few people to see if they would want to become a paid sponsor, and I didn't honestly have a lot of numbers in my mind to back that up with at that point. That was still during season two.
Sure.
So we didn't push the conversations. But I will say one of my favorite benefits of doing a show that is half about cannabis is the free product we receive. And so we have made connections with a number of companies, and some of them have sent us stuff because we talk about it on the air, on our social media. We do full product reviews in video form and post those. And so we've received a lot of things, and some of them have become guests and then brought us even more things. So I'm gonna give a shout out to some of my favorite
Go for it. Yeah,
who have done
absolutely.
that. We have a local shop here in town called the Joint, Joynt.
Okay.
They were actually our first guests for season three, and they gifted us with quite a few goodies. We have another local company here called Naked Nectar. They're not a retail shop yet, but they have a lot of great product. They were the first people that we met that jumped on board with wanting to be a part of this show. So they supply us with quite a bit of flour. Um, there's a company out in Minnesota called Curable, Kuribl, with the two dots over the U. What was that called? An umlaut. Um, they do a lot
Okay.
with doctors and physical therapy. So they sent us some great muscle creams and salves to try and talk about and use. So we get monetization in other forms, and I'm not complaining about it because it helps keep things it keeps money in our pockets, and then I don't have to turn around and necessarily buy as much product as I would because we get the benefit of enjoying it that way.
That's a financial gain, man. I mean, that is technically monetizing the
It it
podcast, which is
it
awesome.
is, and it's things we never even asked for, and that was the better surprise. Was they were just like, thank you for reaching out and incorporating us and wanting to talk about us. What's your address?
That's awesome. That's very, very
We
cool.
actually one more company I'll shout out is called Mezzi, and they're out of California. They do a lot of beverages, and we've talked about beverages a lot this season so far because I think there's been a spike in a lot of people doing different THC infused beverages.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
and there's a big trend in people drinking less alcohol and switching to THC infused beverages. So they sent us two bottles of their non-alcoholic um, beverages, and they're higher end. They're not just the seltzers.
Hmm.
It's alcohol-free alcohol essentially, and they come in large, nice bottles that are not a low cost at the retail level. And they sent us two of them, and I had no idea that was coming. And so that was an amazing surprise. And
Very cool.
that's been one of my favorite benefits, honestly, of starting this show and not even thinking that part of it when we started it, and just the support companies have been giving us just for talking about their products.
That's cool. It
Yeah,
is. I mean, honestly, that's monetizing. If I would normally spend 20 bucks on this thing and someone gives me that thing, I just made $20
exactly.
in my life. That 20 bucks is
Exactly.
still in my wallet, so it's
Now I don't have to go to the store,
right. No, yeah, gas
or I
money.
can buy even more.
Right. Still a financial gain. That's right, because
Yeah,
you're not spending
we
the
because
money.
we do like to still support them. So if they give me something for free, I am probably going to buy a second thing on top of that at the same time. So
Right on. I understand completely. Um, okay, so I mean, this is cool. You guys are in your third season, so you're getting established. You've gotten past that. In between 10 and 20 is when people very often will fade if they're going to fade.
yeah,
Because that's where it's like you've kind of run out of the gimme stuff. All the stuff you thought of to talk about, you've talked about. And do you have more to talk about?
right.
So right in that area is where people fade. You're up in around 30, ish, plus.
Yep,
And when you're up there, you're rolling. I mean, you're on your way to continuing to do more, which is good. It's like you're out of the woods and you're on the track now.
yep.
Yeah, very,
And
very
I
cool.
definitely feel like we're rolling now. We have found our rhythm. We found our routine. Season one was definitely. I will always leave it up because I loved it to see the progression of where we started versus where we are now.
Yeah,
Season
absolutely.
season one was amateur, and I'm not going to underplay that. Then once we got the idea to start bringing in guests, season two got better. We relied on more of our personal friendships at that point. And then now that we're into season three, it's the real connections we have started to make
Nice.
outside of our friend circle. And that has been exponentially better.
Cool.
I'm so happy with the conversations we've been having, and I actually can't wait to release it. It's been hard recording everything far enough in advance so that we're not doing a lot of the back end editing as we release the episodes. But now I'm chomping at the bit to put it out there because it's been really good.
Very cool. And you're excited about releasing the season, which is
I'm
awesome.
so excited to drop it. Like I said, this was our first time really relying on ourselves to reach out to build those connections to bring in guests. And the conversations were all unknown because we don't really know these people. We're not that personal with them. We've had a few conversations leading up to hey, do you want to be a guest on the show? And
Yeah.
so it's been really, really good, and everything has been flowing well. Even within ourselves as hosts and co-host, you can hear the progression in us as we get better doing it.
Nice. That's why you should always leave season one up.
Oh, I will never take it down because
Yeah.
people will want to go back and be like, wow, that
Right.
was not good, but it was funny because it was not good.
Uh-huh. Well, and you got to think about it. And I tell all my students, I tell this exact same thing too, because people always want to take down the old stuff because they've improved
Yeah,
and they're almost embarrassed about it now. And I'm like, wait a minute. Anybody who finds you today is going to listen to your new stuff. The only reason they're going to go back and listen to the old stuff is if they like you.
right.
And if they like you, they're going to get a kick out of the old stuff and
Exactly.
appreciate how much work you did to get as good as you are now
Yep.
compared to how bad you were back then. So, yeah, I mean, I still have my episode one of every podcast I've ever done up.
Yeah.
And my very
And
first one was really bad.
that was one of the reasons why we put the test episode out too, because we were like, why not at this point? Let
Yeah, have
people
some fun.
really hear everything that went on prior to. Because, like you
Love it.
said,
Love it.
if someone finds the show brand new, they're probably not going to scroll all the way back and listen to episode one. They're going to hit what's the most recent.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so they'll
To
fall in love
start.
with that. And then, yeah, go back. I encourage you to go back and listen because we have pivoted and changed every season with how we present it until I feel like now we've really found the best direction for us to continue going in.
That's
And
awesome.
I think it's fun to think about hearing that progression, even if
Very
you're a
cool.
listener finding it to be like, yeah, I can see why they changed that. Or, yeah, yeah, you've gotten so much better. Your conversations have gotten so much better. Yeah, I know. It was playtime the first season, and now there's a bit more of a serious element to it, and you can tell that difference.
Nice. Nice. Now, when you guys first started, you've got some gear here. I mean, you got the screen, you got the mic, you got headphones and stuff. When you guys first got started, did you have to invest a bunch in that, or did you, get some cheap stuff, or some refurbished? How'd you get going?
So it was all, I'm not going to call it cheap. It was inexpensive equipment
There you go.
because I purchased it through Amazon. So none of it was name brand. But read the reviews, did my research, figured out it would be okay to test start with. And, these headphones were the only thing I had because I'm a music buff. Of course, I have nice headphones. But microphone wise, yeah. And I'll be honest, I didn't put a single penny into it on my own. I take online surveys, which can then be converted into Amazon gift cards. And so I just did enough to save up to buy the first two microphones initially. I've, plugged them into my laptop, and that was season one. So,
That's awesome. So, I mean, you basically you got a monetary trade for the equipment, like you
yeah,
do for your sponsor stuff,
yeah.
which is cool. All right, very cool.
Of
Did you
course,
guys?
now we've expanded on that, so it's not necessarily the same beginning equipment, but
Right. No, well, I'm glad to hear that. You guys are moving up. You know what I mean?
yeah,
When you're in season three, sometimes it's time to buy a new mic or,
yeah.
get a new screen or some other kind of thing. So,
The microphones are the same because I actually really liked them, and so much that I bought two more so that as we started incorporating guests, we needed more microphones.
yeah,
But now I've gotten a nice soundboard, and I have a pile soundboard, and so that's gotten better so that we can
nice.
continue to make the audio sound a little bit better.
I like that though. No, I mean, you got the soundboard going and everything. You got, do you have three hookups then for you, your co-host, and one guest? Is that what you're
It's
able to
it's
put together?
actually I can do up to six, but we've only ever done four because I only own four microphones, and we've never had more than four people. So
I mean, that makes sense then. Right on. Now, how do you go about promoting the show?
A lot of word of mouth. It started just with us telling our friends, "Hey, we did a podcast. You should listen to it." Of course, that came with social media. So we have an Instagram, we have a Facebook, we have a Twitter account. I mentioned we have a Patreon, although I don't know how much promotion that does on its own. Um, and then there's tapping into all of our guests. So we collaborate with all of our guests to promote through them and tap into their following as well.
Awesome. So you give them links to the shows that they're on so that they can go ahead and send them out?
Of course,
Right
everybody
on.
gets a link when we post on Facebook or Instagram. We invite them to be collaborators, so it automatically shows on their feed as well.
Nice. Very
And then
nice.
we have our link tree that has links to everything within our social media. So
Beautiful.
that's how we promote it. I've done a few paid advertisements through Facebook and Instagram at the lowest end possible. So an ad will run for 5 days at like $1 a day or whatever it is. Just to do that little boost. We have now since added a TikTok account, but that's only going into this season 3. So we haven't seen how well that can do to promote yet. We're slowly building a following base there, but not with any episode content yet.
Okay. Makes sense. You mentioned to me before the show that your main social though is IG. It's Instagram where you're putting everything together.
Yeah, that's the biggest
Okay.
so far. So
And your address there, in case anybody wants to contact you, since we're talking about it, is
there you go. It is at Vinally High, and that is spelled Vinally High Podcast.
got it.
All one word, no hyphens, no underscores, none of that fancy stuff.
Very, very- no, that's awesome. That's salt of the earth, man. That's great. All right, very, very cool. The now your Drew Beats,
That is my stage name.
so that's
Correct.
Beats, right? Like beets.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, not like the vegetable. Right.
No,
Okay,
no, no,
I
no,
got you.
no.
And then you said it's BJ Buds.
BJ Buds.
Okay, and is it Buds or is there a Z in
Yep.
there? Just
No,
checking.
we toyed with that idea, but we realized we're far too old to be adding Z's to things.
Far too old. You look like you're 18 years old, man.
Thank you. I'm actually 38,
Are you? You get out of town,
but
really?
I will take that as the biggest compliment.
Wow. Jeez. I thought I was talking to a kid this whole time. All right. Well, yeah, joke's on me. Cool. Um,
Which oddly enough, our stage names came from an original show name. Um, when we were toying around with different ideas to call the show, my co-host BJ came up with Buds and Beats, and we didn't go with that for the show, but we liked the sound of it, so we were like, let's just turn that into our names.
got it. Got
And
it.
I'll
All
be
right.
I'll be Beats and you'll be Buds, and we'll just roll with it instead of using our real names.
Love it. That's cool. All right, then. Awesome. Now, are you trying to keep your real name out? Do you want me to edit that out or something? Or
Oh
is
no,
that
no,
just a
you can
stage
by
name
all
for all?
means keep that in.
Okay.
I Everyone still calls me by my real name, but on the show I announce myself as
Okay, good.
Drew Beats, and
That's cool. If it's for fun, that's cool. Just if it was for
yeah.
anonymity, I'm like, whoops, we missed that one.
Oh no, 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 no,
We might want to restart this whole thing.
not total anonymity. We don't care about that.
Gotcha. I
But it
understand.
sounds cooler to use the stage name.
I would imagine. Yeah, it's probably a lot more fun also when you
Yeah,
guys are sitting there having your show. So
exactly.
when you guys got rolling, no, I don't. I know how you got rolling, and I know you were already kind of like relaxed and having fun. When you got this going.
Rolling
But
in multiple ways.
there you go. But did you encounter any issues when you got started? A lot of people sort of have those startup things. They flare up, and odd things happen. Did you guys have
Yeah.
any issues you had to overcome, or was it just pretty much smooth sailing?
I will not say it was total smooth sailing. Um, we were under an influence, so we didn't care about certain things, but there's always hiccups along the way of anything. One of my biggest hiccups was just getting everything compatible from an equipment standpoint, especially when I got my first soundboard. So I'm actually on my second soundboard now. The first one I got was another Amazon purchase, so it was a no-namer, and it came with no instructions. And I couldn't
Wow.
Google it because it was an off-brand name. So it took me a while to work out the audio side of things to just make sure it all flowed because I didn't know I needed certain connectors and then different chords and then learning the difference between XLR and all the different mic connection types and what phantom sound was. I had never even heard of that before and had to figure it out because that was one of the big issues I was having with not getting things to sound right and
Uh,
a lot of static. And I was talking and it was recognizing it, but there was no sound actually coming out. So a lot of hours spent on the internet trying to figure that part out.
so it was a little difficult. You ran into a few things here.
Oh, absolutely. Right up until
Oh,
the hour of our recording, I was still banging my head against the wall trying to figure it out.
nice. Nice. Now, do you guys just record the audio or do you put the video up also
Just
someplace?
audio for now. We don't do any video only because I haven't totally figured out the best way I want to go about that to be able to see everybody and not edit multiple cameras together.
Got it. Okay. That's
Once you start
four
adding
people?
guests, yeah, once you start adding guests, and then we actually record in my living room, and it's not the easiest shape to figure out where to place a camera to actually capture everybody.
Ah,
But that is a goal
uh,
of ours to get to seasons down the road.
yeah, I would think this would play really well on like YouTube, and stuff for people who want to,
I like
kind
to
of be
think
there
it
with you.
would.
Yeah, I think it
I
would.
agree. And that we do everything live, and that's why all of our guests are live and in person. We don't do calls like this for that reason,
Hmm.
because we've just found it so much better when everyone's sitting around together. We're all listening to the same record together.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, if you can
And
do in-person stuff, that's always great.
yeah. So
So
that is a goal, is to add the video element so people can see what the shenanigans look like as we're doing
nice.
it.
Very
Just
nice.
haven't totally figured that piece out yet.
All right. Well, it's time for my corny question. And I know you've been panicking about this the entire time. All right. That you've been sitting here. It's in the back of your mind. It's eating away at you. And you're like, what is
Shaking
this
and
question?
sweating this whole time.
All right. Are you ready?
Shoot.
Okay, here we go. So my corny question is pretty simple. Um, in terms of your podcasting that you do, what is the thing about your podcasting that you do that you love the most? Love the most. And what is the thing about this whole process that you hate the most?
So love the most, I don't even know if I can give one specific thing. There's probably a couple. I love being able to get free product and enjoy it. But I also love the connections we've made and just the conversations we've had, because it's not just an education from us as the host. We're learning through our guests things that I didn't necessarily know about either, and how they incorporate practices. So the conversations have been phenomenal, and that is up there for me. I love talking to people and hearing their stories,
Nice.
which I imagine a lot of podcasters probably have that and have answered in similar ways, because
Sure.
that's why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Well, yeah. If you do the Family Feud thing and you're like number one answers on the board, type of deal,
Yeah.
I would say, the relationships and the interacting with people is very high up on the board.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever had anybody say that they enjoy, the product swap. That might be unique to you, brother.
It's there. We do it. We encourage our guests to do it. So we stay as hosts, we stay more on the sober end only because there's logistics involved. And I don't want to screw up the equipment in any way, but everybody usually has a little something in them just to take the edge off. And, because we get stuff for free, we offer stuff for free too if somebody wants to try something. And that's always enjoyable. Plus, I get to share my record collection and spin cool music. So,
Yeah.
it's three things I love doing built into 1 hour and a half moment.
Nice. Very, very nice. Is that how long your podcasts usually are? About an hour and a half?
We try to keep it around ish the hour and a half mark.
Cool.
Some go a little long if the conversation's flowing. We've had some go a little shorter just because we felt like we ended on a high note and didn't want to ruin it, and it was maybe only an hour 15.
Sure.
The longer we go, the more time we have to go off on side tangents, and I got to try to wrestle those back in, and it's not always the easiest.
It's good though, because when you're going long form like that, like we talked about in the pre-interview, some of this stuff about how long we were going and everything else. When you're going long form, like hour and a half, if you have the meat to fill up the time, if you've got the content, like you guys do, it's this big casual conversation. You're playing the music also. It isn't just, two dudes chatting and, having a fight about politics or something. It's like, it's like joining you guys for an evening.
Yeah. And we have our talking points, but we let the conversations flow naturally. And so the beauty of having a guest come in is it brings that unknown element of, if the conversation's good, I'm going to let it roll, but I have no idea where it's going to go. We may ask a question and then that spawns a 25-minute long story slash conversation. We don't know where it's going to go, but it's always fun.
So, for anybody who hasn't listened to the podcast yet, do you want to give us an example or two of what these conversations sound like, or maybe like where you start and where you end up? Give us a little bit of a
So
taste. Give us an example.
there is a little bit of an outline I try to keep myself to for each episode. We, like your corny question, we have certain things we kind of build into each episode as well. It always starts with an introduction, who the guest is, what they do, whether they're a musician or a smoke shop or whatever they are, what they do, why they do it, that element. We get the record going, so then we usually talk about why they picked it and what it means to them from a music standpoint, from a life standpoint. And then we kind of just let things roll into, what products do you use? Why do you use them? What's new that we've each maybe tried during the week and how it feels. So there's always that hemp element from a fun standpoint. Then if we have our other holistic health people on, or even some of our product growers, we talk the educational side of it, not just the fun side of it. So there's always a part of the episode where it's, what's that used for? Is it for pain? Is it for anxiety? Is it for sleep aids? The ins and outs of that, because there's so many different strains of things now. There are a lot of different ways to use it.
Hmm.
We have a guy coming up soon that I'll drop a little teaser on this episode. We have a guy that is now making infused frozen pizzas. And so if we find something new that we've never seen before, I love those episodes because it's like announcing it to the world. And this is a great concept. And so we do that. And like I said, we just let it roll. And so it turns into life stories on top of the business side of it. Um, and once we're spinning the record, that's it. I don't edit anything out during that because once we're committed to the music, you'd be able to tell if all of a sudden a song skipped because I edited a part out.
Right.
So it's all just that real conversation for at least the length of the record. After that, if there's a part I don't like, I can take it out. But
Do you do a lot of
usually,
editing, or do you try and avoid it?
honestly, I don't. I've been lucky in the last, at least with the recording this third season and most of season two. I didn't really cut a lot out. We
Good
just
deal.
naturally had some good conversations.
That's awesome.
And then like I said, we do certain things like your question that you asked, your cheesy question, and like one of the things we do is prior to putting the record on, I have my co-host verbally describe the cover art without saying the name of the record, the name of the person, or literally
Mm,
just what he's seeing. And during season two, I would take his words and just run them through an AI image generator and see what it generated, and then we would use that as like the teaser picture on our Instagram for that episode and see how close it got.
nice.
This year we're changing it up, and that's the only video element we have is I'm recording him, and then we're going to drop that on our TikTok and see if people can guess. We always pose the question, "What do you think we're going to be listening to this episode based off of this description?"
Cool.
And he's gotten really good at it over the last two seasons, and it's always interesting. I'll purposely try to pick a really weird record sometimes where the cover art is just all over the place, obscure.
Mhm.
And other times it'll literally just be the artist's face and he has to describe it without saying their name. And
Wow.
we see where
All
that
right.
goes and how close he can get. And so that's one of our fun elements we incorporate into every single episode. I guess
Nice.
that's our cheesy question moment.
Nice. Nice. Everybody's got to have one. So that's good.
Yeah,
That's awesome. All right. It sounds like you guys have an absolute blast doing your podcast.
it's so much fun. I actually miss it during our off season and I'm trying to figure out ways to extend things we do if we're not recording actual episodes because a year in between it's like a TV show season. You get hooked and then
Hmm.
It stops and you have to wait a whole other year.
What made you guys decide to go with the season format as opposed to just, putting out an episode every week?
At first, scheduling and timing,
Okay.
just to make sure we weren't spreading ourselves too thin in our normal lives. Um, that may change going forward. We haven't had that full conversation yet. I think each season we may just try to extend a few episodes and see how that continues to go
I see.
instead of just doing a straight 52-week long, once a week uh, episode. And some of that is for me because I do a lot of the editing. And so I want to make sure I have enough time to do all of that and run all the social media accounts and keep my normal 9 to 5 job.
Right. When you're doing all this as a hobby, that's like as fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then yeah, it is a lot. It takes a lot of time. And people
Yeah.
who aren't podcasters don't realize how much time we put in. They have no idea.
Absolutely. And then, so a lot of the off season then becomes prep for the next season. So it's thinking about who we want to have guests, continuing to make those conversations and connections and see who's going to fit the show. And you know,
Excellent.
planning out every episode, getting our talking points. Yeah, like you said, a lot of people, if you haven't done this, you may not realize, even though it is a hobby right now, we still put a fair amount of time into making sure it comes together right.
Right.
And then there's all the post editing.
I'm telling you, people have no idea until they've done it. They just
Another
don't
element
have
we
an
don't
idea.
do video yet because the audio sometimes is just enough.
Yeah, when you get to video, the editing takes on a whole new um, atmosphere. I mean, it's very very different when you're editing video.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
can imagine. And
right? So it's
I'm not sure I want to dive down that hole yet.
it's a rabbit hole. It really is. It's a tough one. So you might need twice as much product to get through that one. That's all I can tell you. When you start
You
to
know, the good news is I rarely run out. So
right on.
but I will say, and this comes with the educational piece that we do throughout our show. Like I said, there's a lot of different strains for a lot of different things, and there are some strains of flower that are for focus and are for energy and are for being creative, but still in a mindset where you can do the work.
Hmm,
Um, and so that's been fun to explore.
interesting. I
So
mean,
yeah, I mean, it doesn't. If I got to sit down and do a lot of editing, I definitely do it with help.
got it. Are you big on spreading the word of the health benefits of it, or are you just more into the enjoyment of it?
It's a mixture of both, but we really do strive to hit hard on the educational and the health, medicinal health side of it, just because there's that stigma around it of, well, it's only for fun and it's just for, cutting up and letting loose. Well, it's not. There's a lot of other reasons people do it. And we do it for all the reasons. Sure, there's nights where I want to get together with my friends and just have a good time and spin music and relieve some stress. And then I'm on a regimen of using it every day for various reasons. So, if you have insomnia, it's great for that. If you have high stress and anxiety, it is great for that. If you have ADD or ADHD and have trouble focusing, it can be great for that. Not to mention all the various muscle pain, aches, joint pain, chronic pain issues.
Yeah,
There's things for that too. So
nice,
we
very
talk about
nice.
all of that, and then this season we're doing a lot more with laws and legality behind it as well as our state, but as our country is constantly changing and what's allowed and what's not allowed, we like to keep up with that too.
Sure. I imagine you would kind of have to,
Yeah,
in terms of that within that field. So,
yeah. I'm not trying to
um,
tell someone to go do something illegal.
of course not. Of course not. That's awesome. Let me all right. Well, so my final question that I usually ask people, and I prepped you for this a little bit. We'll see what you come up with. You guys are fairly accomplished. I mean, season three is season three. You've been
Yeah.
through it. You've run into some issues. You've overcome them. So, what's one piece of advice you can give to a podcaster who's just not quite where you are yet? They might be hitting some issues. They might be getting a little disenchanted. Haven't made any money yet. Takes a lot of time. What's one good piece of advice you can give to a podcaster who is not yet where you are?
I would say the biggest advice I always give people, if you've already started, is just be yourself. bring what you bring to your episodes because someone can tell if you're reading from a script or if you're being fake. Just sit back and allow yourself to be yourself. Um, and then don't focus on the money. I did in the beginning because that's the goal for a lot of things in life, right? But I'm coming to learn it's in the beginning, it's not going to be about the money. It's going to be about the fun and the enjoyment. And if you're having fun doing it, it's going to show in your episodes. And then join or a podcast group. You know, we connected through a Facebook group, and that's
Yeah,
been a wealth. Even being where I am now, it's still a wealth of knowledge to continue to read what other people are learning or overcoming, or a problem they've had that they ask a question for. And it's like, well, I've experienced that before too. I'm going to follow this post and see what people say. So connect with other people and learn from what they're learning.
nice. Great advice. Great advice, man. I appreciate those nuggets. All right. You've got a pretty unique podcast, brother. And I want to give you one shot in case there is something I didn't ask you about or you didn't get a chance to talk about. Is there anything that you want to make sure people know about you or your co-host or your podcast that we didn't cover?
You know, I don't know how to answer that one. I'm going to say
It's
this
okay.
is my speechless time, but we're a fun podcast. We understand we're niche, but it's it's a fun time, and I always enjoy doing it. We started off having a little bit too much fun the first season, and then we realized there should be, like I said, once we started bringing the educational element more into it, you can see that shift. And I personally, I'm a little biased, but I personally believe it's gotten a lot better over the course of these first three seasons. It's still the same two guys sitting back and enjoying life, and
Mhm.
that part hasn't changed. But bringing in our guests has changed it, and it brings in that added element that the
Nice.
show needed. And so we still cut it up, we still talk, we still have a good time, but we try to hope someone learns something from it too.
Excellent. Excellent. That perfect summary, man. I love it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you only learn through my trials and tribulations from the product use, then I'll accept that. You know, if I made a mistake and I tell a story about it, that just means somebody else hopefully won't make that mistake.
Beautiful. They get to learn from your scars then too.
Exactly. That is part of the show. I will openly talk about the bad experiences with the good.
Great. That's great, man. Andrew, you've been a pleasure to have on, man. I mean, I love how much you are just having a great time doing all this stuff, and you're doing so many things right, and you're really just plowing down the road, man. I mean, 30 plus, and I can't wait to hear season three and keep an eye on you guys and see what comes with season four after that too. It looks like you got some cool things happening.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you having me on to experience this. It's different being on the other side, but when you reached out, I knew it was a good opportunity. The podcast for podcasters. It's the best. What better platform?
Right. There you go. Very, very cool. I appreciate that. Thanks, man. And if you know any other podcasters and they're not on the show yet, send them my way. We'll get them on there.
Of course,
Just tell them Andrew sent you.
we're trying to get more of an other podcast, connection going. So this,
Right.
if I hear anybody, I'll send them your way.
Have you joined our group yet? I mean, it's very small. We just got it started. The Podcaster Nation.
I haven't. It is on my list to get to. You did send me the link, and I just haven't done it yet.
Awesome. Okay. I didn't know if I'd sent you the link for the group yet. I know I sent you the calendar one, but um, yeah, I'll double check. And if I haven't, I'll shoot the link over again with an invite. There's a lot of guys in there already talking about doing show swaps,
Yeah,
and things like that. I got a couple of guys doing an anime podcast, that are just, they're having fun, and you guys might hit it off. There's a lot of very eclectic group of people from everywhere, every walk of life in this group already, even at our young, spot that we're at. So
yeah, I
we got
love
to
it.
get you in there,
That's
man.
one of the best ways I think to promote is to cross promote. So
Yeah,
that's one of my
absolutely.
goals for this season.
Good deal. Stay at it. Stay with it. All right, brother. Thank you for being on. I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Folks, you've had another awesome episode of The Podcaster Nation. We had a lot of fun here. Andrew Kordula, host of Vinally High podcast. We're going to have all the links in the show notes. to his Instagram, and of course to this podcast. And you guys can go check all those things out. It sounds like it's informative and fun, and it sounds like it's just sitting down with some good folks having a nice evening is what it sounds like. So I hope you guys will tune in and enjoy it. This is the podcast that is for podcasters. It's about podcasters and it's done by podcasters. This is the place, folks. This podcast, this is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So keep sailing.